Dirty Decks, done that cheap. Dirty Decks, done that cheap.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Keza and today we are doing a long forgotten format. We are doing Dirty Decks Done Dirt Cheap. Yes, we've opened up that number 15 on the old advent calendar, Yu-Gi-Oh! Advent calendar, it being December, and behind it we have found a dirty deck that I thought needed a bit more highlighting, so we're getting into it. So this is Antonie's first place, well, I incorrectly called it a Tenyi Swordsoul deck, not a Tenyi Soul Sword deck, which would also be incorrect, but a Tenyi Swordsoul deck. If you take a look at it a bit more, it's actually more of a Tenyi deck using some of the new Soul Sword cards from Burst of Destiny here. As you can see, let's jump to the deck list. We've got one Iris Swordsoul, one Mermare, 3 Ashuna, 2 Vishuda, 3 Longyuan, 3 Adhara, 2 Shithana, 1 Mapura, 1 Nahata, 1 Incredible Ecclesia, so it's not that cheap, but it does have one of these, so that's a good sign. 3 Sword Tire, 0 on the old hand traps there, 2 Foolish Burial Goods, 3 Soul Sword Emergence, 3 Vessel for the Dragon Cycle, 1 Foolish Burial, 3 Forbidden Chalice, 2 Dragon Cycle of Celestial Illusions, aka Heaven Dragonly Cycle, 1 Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi, 3 Sword Soul Blackout, and 1 Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi. Onto the extra deck, we have 2 Monk of the Tenyi, 2 Shaman of the Tenyi, 1 Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Yazi of the Tenyi, 1 Baxia Brightness of the Young Zing, 2 Sword Soul Grandmaster Chishao, 1 Omega, 1 Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Xiaofang Phantom of the Young Zing, 1 Virtual World Shinshin, 1 Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign, and 1 Ruddy Rose Dragon. So as you can see, what he's done here is he's taken the Tenyi portion of the Sword Soul deck and popped it up. There's no Moyes, there's not 3 Ecclesia, there's not even the Baron in the extra deck. This is mostly just leaning more heavily on the Tenyi deck as opposed to relying more on the Sword Soul portion of that. And what you find is you have a deck that can still put out very similar boards, it's just it doesn't have the card economy that the Sword Soul cards offer, like Moyes Extra Draw is really critical and things like that. But let's go into an example hand now and see what this deck can actually do when we're going first. So here we have our opening hand here. We've got Foolish Burial Goods, we've got 1 Vessel, 1 Blackout, 1 Adhara, and 1 Ashuna. These two are really great openers in the Sword Soul deck, and just because we're not playing Sword Souls doesn't mean we can't end on a very similar board to them. So starting off here, this is starting off like a normal Sword Soul deck. We're going to start with our Ashuna, setting Ashuna to special, link into our Monk, special summon our Adhara, Ashuna banish from the grave because we control the Monk, to special summon our Vishuda to the field. Synchro those two because Adhara is a tuner monster and this is a level 7 in our Vishuda. Into our Chishao there. Now this is where you'd normally get a draw with Moye, but obviously not this day, my friend. So we are going to be missing a card from our hand like we normally would, but at the moment we're sitting with a Link 1 and a Synchro monster and we haven't used our normal summon. Take this opportunity now to use Adhara's effect to add Ashuna back to our hand. Foolish Burial of Goods here. We're just going to throw a Blackout into the graveyard here. Then we'll use our normal summon to summon Tyre. Using Tyre's effect, banish the Blackout, and create that all-important token. Blackout will also gain us a token as well, so if we had any interruption on the Tyre there, we'd still be okay. Because we control some vanilla monsters now, let's safely activate that Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. And that's going to send our Water guy and add the Green guy. There, synchro those two into Draco Berserker, and because we've got the Blackout already, sit on that. So this is a very similar looking field to what you'd normally end in Soul Sword here. We've got a Chishao, we've got a Berserker, we've got a Monk of the Tenyi, we've got a token here that we can freely use with our Blackout, And at any point we can also combo the Blackout, destroying the token, with our blue guy in the graveyard for even more disruption here. So we don't have the card economy of Swordsoul, we're not gaining extra pluses and stuff, but we can put out very similar sort boards. So with that, let's jump into a game and see exactly what this deck can do in an actual match. Cool, and our match this time is up against Salamangreat, a deck that is still reasonably potent if it opens up its hand traps. But as Lunch Lady Doris would say, there are very little hand traps in the Salamangreat deck. I think this is a very fair comparison as far as power level. We don't have our powerful Swordsoul cards, it is mostly a Tenyi deck. So here we're comparing pies to pies, we're not going pies to a delicious steak à poivre. So let's see what our non-Swordsoul deck can do against Salamangreat. And we get to go first, and as I said, they are, for a Salamangreat deck, they have opened very little hand traps, so this is all looking very standard. Special summon our blue, make monk, activate our emergence here. That gets us our tire. Summon, banish the emergence, create ourselves a token, synchro both of those into our Chi-Shao, which is going to activate its effect. Tire is also going to activate as well, so we can load a shooter in the graveyard, so we're all good for next turn. Chi-Shao adds a long one to our hand. Long one in our hand. Discarding Blackout, special summon long one, make a token, go into our level 10 synchro, the Supreme Sovereign there. Burn our opponent for 1200 as per long one's effect. It's a hot one. And we'll set a Blackout and choosing to keep the Chalice in the hand purely because so we've got something better to do next turn. We'll step on. So here we've got a two destruction, a monster negate. If anything happens to our cards to get banished, we can use Ching here to just banish even more. And if we do destroy our token, again we're all loaded up with the water guy to destroy even more, okay? So, not a lot of negation, but a lot of monster removal, and that's one of the things that Salamangreat really need. Standard stuff, he's already got the Gazelle, so he's going to circle for the Foxy. Foxy going to find nothing. Into the Baylynx. Baylynx activates, chain the old Parallel Exceed in hand here. My god, it's been a while since I've seen these plays. Adding our Sanctuary, Parallel Exceed goes off there. It's at this opportunity that I decide, hey, destroying with Blackout's going to be a really great play. Take my monk. Take out his 2, because I really don't care about the Baylynx if we're keeping all the rest of his Salamangreats on the field. Ooh, and that's when our blue guy goes off, targeting the monk and grave. Monk revives, and we destroy the Baylynx. Now I didn't know he had the Gazelle in hand, but it seemed like a decent play. But now this is going to trigger his Gazelle to go off. He has used Parallel Exceed this turn, so that means that he can't use the effect of his... What's the Fire Pony called? Fire Pony. Pinkie Pie. No. Mirage Stallion. Can't use that because he's used the Parallel Exceed this turn. And here, just to keep that thing off the board, keep him reviving stuff, we are going to choose our Chi-Shao to negate the Gazelle. It doesn't matter about him dumping here because Chinging here is just going to sit there and take the opportunity to banish Gazelle. He realizes that this game is up because we're just going to attack with everything next turn. And yeah, that's taking game 1. So that's it for this episode of Dirty Decks Done Dirt Cheap, bringing with you Swordsoul-less Swordsoul, which, to be honest, didn't seem that terrible. We still had the... You could still use great cards like the Circle here. You could still have access to Emergence, which these are worth barely nothing. These are pennies, if not, like, just given to you by a good mate. The Ecclesia here, we didn't see it at all because it's a spellcaster and we're only playing one of it, so didn't get to see that in action here. But the rest of this deck is also very cheap, like the long one as well. These are commons or supers in the latest ODS pack, and everything else, commons. I think the most expensive thing other than that would possibly be the Ruddy Rose Dragon there, which wasn't even necessary. Like heck, in this version of the deck you could almost get away with playing 2 of this guy here, the Sovereign Supreme Chingying, so if you saw like we did in the last game there, we don't get yourself locked into worms. But anyway guys, thanks heaps for watching, give this deck the old sword seal of approval, and hope to catch you soon back on the channel. Catch you later. Ka kite.